I always thought Christmas morning was supposed to feel magical, no matter how complicated families could be. But that year, standing in my mother-in-law's polished living room with its 12-foot tree and perfectly coordinated ornaments, I felt something tighten in my chest. I could tell from the moment Evelyn Chambers looked at me that she was waiting for an opportunity to strike. She never wasted a chance to remind me that I didn't come from money, that I didn't grow up vacationing at ski lodges or country clubs, and that my 7-year-old son, Noah, wasn't biologically part of the Chambers bloodline. She loved that word, bloodline. It was her favorite shield, her weapon, and her excuse. As the family gathered around the tree, Evelyn stood in front of all the grandchildren with a proud smile plastered on her face. "Well," she announced loudly, "Christmas envelopes for all my Chambers grandbabies." She lifted a neat stack of white envelopes tied with a red ribbon and started handing them out one by one like she was distributing royal decrees. Avery jumped with excitement. Blake tore his open immediately. Jordan and Mia clapped. Each envelope held a crisp stack of bills totaling $1,000. Their parents smiled, and even Jacob, my husband, gave me a quick look that said, "Please don't make this into something." But then Evelyn stopped in front of Noah. She looked down at him the way someone might look at a stray cat that wandered into the wrong yard. Her smile faded into something condescending. She pulled back the last envelope before Noah could reach for it. "Oh," she said, her voice sharp. "Not him." The room fell silent. I felt my pulse pound in my ears. "Evelyn, what are you doing?" I asked. Her eyes flicked toward me with satisfaction. "Money should be earned, Emily. I don't believe in handing out rewards to children who aren't truly family." Noah didn't understand the nuance of her cruelty, but he understood enough. He slowly pulled his hand back and tucked it against his stomach. His cheeks flushed red. My voice wavered. "He's a child. He's your grandson." She lifted her chin. "He is your son. That is not the same thing." I stared at Jacob, hoping he would say something, anything, but he looked at his shoes like he wanted to sink into the floorboards. The weight of his silence pressed against the air. My heart broke as I watched Noah swallow hard, trying not to cry. His eyes shimmered, but he kept them down, scared that looking at anyone might make everything worse. I knelt beside him, placing my hand on his back. "Hey," I whispered, "you did nothing wrong. Do you hear me?" He nodded, squeezing his lips together the way he always did when he was trying to be strong. The other children shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension even though they didn't fully understand it. Their parents avoided eye contact with me, pretending to admire the tree or straighten ornaments. No one wanted to challenge Evelyn. But then Noah turned to me, tugging gently at my sleeve. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "Mom," he said, "is this what Grandpa meant?" I didn't understand at first. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" He reached into his tiny coat pocket and pulled out a small, folded white envelope. The edges were soft and worn from him holding it so many times in secret. "Grandpa gave me this before he went to the hospital," he said. "He told me to open it if Grandma was ever mean." My breath caught. Walter. Sweet, gentle Walter. The only person in Jacob's family who ever treated Noah like he mattered. The only one who didn't care about bloodlines or last names. He called Noah my boy and meant it with his whole soul. I touched the envelope with trembling fingertips. "Noah," I whispered, "are you sure?" He nodded. His voice steadied with a bravery far beyond his years. "Yes. Grandpa said I would know." Before I could stop him, before I could shield him from Evelyn's next blow, he walked toward her with the envelope held carefully between his small hands. "Grandma," he said softly, shaky but determined, "this is for you." Evelyn looked down at him, annoyed that he was interrupting her moment of pride. "What is this?" she demanded, snatching the envelope. But when she opened it, the color drained from her face. Inside was a check written for $50,000, made out solely to Noah Parker, with a note in Walter's unmistakable handwriting. Jacob's head shot up. The room froze. The note read, "This is for Noah, from the account your grandmother doesn't know about." And that was the exact moment the entire family realized the truth. Walter had seen everything, and he had planned for this day. Before Christmas morning unraveled the way it did, before the humiliation and the envelope and the check that exposed everything, I had spent years trying to make the Chambers family feel like a place my son and I belonged. My name is Emily Parker, and I married into a world that never truly opened its doors for me. Not fully, not generously, not with the warmth that families were supposed to offer. My husband, Jacob Chambers, grew up in wealth, old wealth, the kind that hides behind mahogany doors, polished floors, and traditions that outsiders are expected to follow without question. When we met, he was soft-spoken, kind, and eager to build something of his own. He fell for me quickly, and I for him, but his world had trouble accepting that kind of story, especially his mother, Evelyn. Evelyn Chambers was the type of woman who believed that money proved moral superiority. Everything in her life had to reflect success, control, and image. She orchestrated gatherings with military precision, dressed in pearls even when opening mail, and expected the rest of the family to treat her opinions as instructions. Her husband, Walter, was the opposite. Soft eyes, warm laugh, a man who understood that power didn't come from wealth, but how gently you held the people around you. He became the grandfather my son had always needed. Noah entered the picture before Jacob and I met. I was a single mother working 2 jobs, doing my best, hoping the world wouldn't swallow me whole. When Jacob asked if he could adopt Noah after we married, I cried for hours. It felt like someone finally wanted us both, not in pieces, but as a whole. Jacob became Noah's father in every way that mattered, but Evelyn never let me forget that Noah wasn't her real blood. She used that phrase like a knife. That Christmas was our first without Walter. He had passed away 2 months earlier after a long, exhausting battle with heart failure. Even as his body weakened, he made time to talk to Noah. He carved wooden trains with him. He told him stories about fishing trips he planned to take once he got his strength back. But one night, when I walked in with a cup of tea for Walter, I found him leaning toward Noah, speaking in a quiet, private voice. I didn't know what they were talking about, but Noah looked serious, nodding slowly. When Walter noticed me, he smiled and said, "Just a little promise between us." I had no idea that moment would come back into our lives so powerfully. After Walter died, Evelyn became even harsher. She insisted on planning the funeral alone. She refused to include Noah in the memorial slideshow, saying she didn't want to confuse guests. She placed a seating chart at the service and put Noah and me in the back row. Jacob confronted her, but she shut him down with a bitter, "I won't rewrite history for the sake of your wife's child." Those words left a wound I couldn't show anyone. Still, Jacob convinced me to attend Christmas at the Chambers estate, hoping the holiday would soften his mother's sharp edges. I agreed for his sake, for Noah's sake, and because a small part of me hoped the absence of Walter would remind everyone how fragile and temporary life was. Maybe it would make them kinder. Maybe it would make them realize family wasn't about DNA. We arrived at the mansion early, stepping into a living room that looked like a holiday magazine cover. A towering Christmas tree, garlands draped along the fireplace, gold ornaments reflecting the glow of white lights. The air smelled like cinnamon and pine. Laughter echoed from the kitchen where Evelyn's daughter, Claire, and her husband, Tom, were arranging appetizers. Their kids, Avery and Blake, ran around in matching pajamas, squealing with excitement. Noah stood beside me quietly, holding the small envelope Walter had given him. He had kept it hidden for weeks. When I asked what it was, he said, "Grandpa told me not to open it until the right moment." I warned him to be careful with it, thinking it was a goodbye note or a little keepsake. I never imagined anything more. As family members gathered in the living room, the familiar pattern began. Claire gave me a polite but dismissive smile. Tom offered a half wave. The cousins rushed past Noah as if he were invisible. Evelyn looked me over from head to toe and murmured, "At least you dressed appropriately this time." I should have walked out then, but Noah tugged at my hand and whispered, "It's okay, Mom. We'll just stay close together." We sat near the edge of the couch as Evelyn made her announcement, holding her stack of envelopes. My stomach twisted. I felt a chill even though the room was warm. I knew something was coming. Evelyn had been too quiet, too composed. People like her didn't stay still unless they were preparing to pounce. When she handed envelopes to each grandchild with a proud, glowing smile, The dread settled in my bones. I didn't expect what she said next, but I should have. And that moment would become the spark that lit everything Walter had seen coming long before any of us did. The moment Evelyn handed out the envelopes, the room filled with cheers from the other grandkids. Avery practically squealed, waving her envelope in the air. Blake tore his open and shouted, $1,000! Jordan and Mia clapped, their parents smiling proudly at the display of Evelyn's generosity. It was loud, joyful, chaotic, the kind of Christmas morning you see in commercials, but only for them. Noah sat beside me, watching carefully. His small hands rested on his lap, and I could see him trying to mimic the excitement of the other kids, even though he hadn't been given anything. He kept glancing at the envelopes, then at me, hoping I would explain what was happening. I squeezed his hand, silently begging him to hold on. Then Evelyn turned toward us with that stiff smile she wore when she was preparing to strike. "And now," she said proudly, "that is all the Chambers grandchildren accounted for." She tucked the last remaining envelope into her cardigan pocket. My stomach dropped. "Evelyn," I said, my voice low, "you skipped Noah." She blinked dramatically as if confused. "What do you mean?" "He didn't get one," I replied, forcing my tone to stay even. Her expression sharpened. "I said the Chambers grandchildren. I didn't stutter." Shock rippled through the room. Claire shifted uncomfortably. Tom pretended to adjust his sweater, avoiding eye contact. Only the grandchildren stayed oblivious, still lost in their excitement. I stood. "You don't have to like me," I said, "but don't take this out on my son." Evelyn leaned back slightly as if amused. "I'm not taking anything out on him. I'm simply stating a fact. Money, my dear, carries legacy. You build that with blood, effort, and family history. He is not part of that." "He is part of this family," I shot back. "Jacob adopted him. He is your grandson." "Legally, perhaps," she said, "but not biologically. And I don't reward what isn't mine." Noah heard every word. He was quiet still, almost too still, like he was trying to hold himself together. His little chest rose and fell quicker than normal, and I could tell he was swallowing his tears, trying not to embarrass himself. I lowered myself to his level and brushed his hair from his eyes. "Honey, you are perfect," I whispered. "Nothing she says changes that." Noah nodded, but he didn't look at me. He kept staring at the floor, his lip trembling. The humiliation wasn't mine this time. It was his, and that was a pain I couldn't shield him from. Jacob finally stepped forward, though not with the strength I hoped for. "Mom, that wasn't necessary." Evelyn lifted her chin. "It was honest. Someone has to teach that child the value of earning things. Handouts do not build character." My voice cracked. "He's 7 years old. What could he possibly earn to satisfy you?" Evelyn shrugged. "Respect, understanding, restraint. All things he needs to learn." I stared at her in disbelief. "You humiliated him. There was no lesson here." "Oh, there was," she said calmly. "For you." The words slammed into me. She wasn't just cutting down Noah. She was punishing me. She wanted me to feel powerless, small, and unwelcome, and she used my child to do it. The silence in the room thickened, heavy and suffocating. Even the Christmas music playing in the background suddenly felt misplaced, bright and cheerful in a moment drenched in cruelty. Then, unexpected movement broke the stillness. Noah stood up. He didn't look angry or broken. He looked thoughtful, almost steady. He walked toward me and tugged gently at my sleeve. "Mom," he whispered, "is this the moment Grandpa meant? The moment he said I'd know?" I froze. "What do you mean?" Noah swallowed hard. "Before he died, Grandpa gave me something. He told me to wait until Grandma was being mean." My breath hitched. "Noah." He gently pulled the folded envelope from his pocket. He'd held onto it for 2 months. He never opened it. He trusted Walter's instruction with the devotion only a child could have. Jacob stepped closer. "What is that? Where did you get it?" "Grandpa," Noah answered quietly. "He said to give it to Grandma when the moment felt right." Jacob looked stunned. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "What nonsense is this?" I placed my hand over Noah's. "Sweetheart, we don't need to—" "I do," he said, surprising all of us. "Grandpa told me to be brave when the time comes." He stepped out of my reach, walked up to Evelyn with a small but steady posture, and extended the envelope toward her. "Grandma," he said, his voice cracking but determined, "this is for you." Evelyn gave a patronizing scoff. "What? A drawing? A letter? How cute!" She snatched the envelope from his hand, but as she opened it, her face changed, her lips parted, her eyes widened, her complexion turned a shade, paler than the snow outside. Whatever power she thought she held evaporated the moment she saw Walter's handwriting, and that was when the real shift in the room began. When Evelyn opened the envelope and her expression shifted from superiority to something resembling confusion, the room's energy changed. It was subtle at first. The way Claire paused mid-sentence, the way Tom leaned forward, even the grandchildren quieted, sensing something serious. For the first time that morning, the noisy, picture-perfect Christmas scene began to fracture. I stood behind Noah with my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. My instincts screamed to step forward, take the envelope from Evelyn's hands, and protect my son from whatever disaster might come next. He shouldn't have been the one to trigger this moment. He shouldn't have been the one forced to confront a grown woman's cruelty. He was 7. 7. And yet he stood there with a bravery that didn't look fragile or temporary. It looked inherited. Walter had given him something deeper than money: courage. Evelyn unfolded the paper with a look of annoyance, expecting crayons or childish handwriting. But when she saw Walter's name in his familiar cursive, her entire posture snapped upright. Jacob stepped closer. "Mom, what is that?" Evelyn didn't answer. Instead, she stared at the letter like she had discovered a ghost in her own home. Her hand trembled slightly, and for a woman who prided herself on control, even that tiny movement was a confession. Noah looked up at me with wide, questioning eyes. "Did I do it right, Mom?" I knelt and held his shoulders. "Yes, sweetheart. You did exactly what Grandpa trusted you to do, but I'm here. Whatever happens next, I'm right here." He nodded, squeezing my hands tightly before turning his attention back to Evelyn. She finally spoke. This can't be real." Jacob reached toward her. "Mom, show me." She jerked the letter away protectively as if his touch would burn it. That reaction alone told everyone something was wrong. Evelyn never withheld anything from her son unless it threatened her authority. Walter's absence hung heavily in the air, but in that moment it felt like he was standing right behind Noah, steadying his small shoulders. I straightened and faced Evelyn. "What does the letter say?" Her eyes darted between me, the letter, and Noah. There was a frantic quality in the way she scanned the words. Her voice cracked the slightest bit when she said, "This is ridiculous. Walter must have been confused." Jacob frowned. "Confused about what?" About his finances," she snapped. "This can't be correct." "Mom," Jacob said firmly, "let me see the letter." But Evelyn didn't hand it over. She clutched it as though losing it meant losing something far bigger, her grip on the family she'd ruled for decades. Seeing her unravel only made me more protective. "What exactly are you trying to hide?" I asked. Evelyn's face hardened. "I am not hiding anything. I'm simply trying to understand why my husband would keep secrets from me." "Or maybe," Claire said quietly from the couch, "he didn't keep secrets. Maybe he protected someone." That remark struck Evelyn harder than the letter itself. Noah took a small step forward. "Grandma," he said, his voice soft but clear, "Grandpa told me to give you this when you were being mean. He said you'd understand." Evelyn's breathing hitched. She looked down at him with a mix of anger, disbelief, and something else. Fear. The room remained silent. Every adult was watching her. Every child felt the gravity, even if they didn't understand it. Then Evelyn finally opened her hand enough for the check to slip slightly into view. A single gasp broke the quiet. It was from Jacob. "That's $50,000 made out to Noah? Mom, what is going on?" Evelyn clenched her jaw. "It's some sort of error. It has Walter's signature," I said. Her voice sharpened. "Signatures can be replicated." Jacob stepped toward her again, this time with authority I hadn't heard from him before. "Mom, give me the letter." His tone made her pause. After a long moment, she reluctantly held it out. As Jacob read, his expression transformed. Confusion, shock, then a quiet, devastating understanding. He looked at me. "This is real. Dad meant every word. My chest tightened. What does it say? Jacob swallowed. It says the money is for Noah's future, and he tells Mom. He hesitated, glancing at Noah before finishing. He tells Mom that this came from an account she never knew about. Gasps filled the room. Evelyn staggered back, nearly falling into her armchair. The balance of power, the one she'd controlled for years, shifted right there, right in front of the Christmas tree covered in gold ornaments she'd chosen. This wasn't just money. This was truth. This was Walter, speaking from beyond the grave through the smallest, bravest voice in the room. The turning point had arrived, and nothing would ever go back to the way it was. Jacob held the letter in both hands as if it were something fragile, something sacred. His eyes moved across Walter's handwriting slowly, absorbing every word. I could see his throat tighten, his jaw clench, his shoulders rise and fall with uneven breaths. He wasn't just reading a letter. He was learning the truth about the man who raised him and about the woman he still feared like a child. Noah watched him with hopeful eyes. The room remained silent, the kind of silence that squeezes every heartbeat into your ears. The Christmas tree lights blinked softly in the background, almost mocking how bright the room looked compared to how dark the energy felt. Finally, Jacob exhaled and lifted his head. Dad wrote this 2 weeks before he passed, he said. He wrote it with full clarity. This isn't confusion. This isn't a mistake. Evelyn stiffened. Jacob, stop. You're being dramatic. But Jacob didn't stop. He straightened, reading Walter's words aloud so the entire family could hear. My dearest Noah, this money is for your future. You deserve opportunities, love, and support that no child should ever be denied. If your grandmother ever treats you as anything less than my grandson, give her this letter. Whispers rippled across the room. Claire covered her mouth. Tom blinked like he was waking up from a dream. Jacob continued, And Evelyn, he read, pausing briefly before speaking again, this money comes from the account you never knew I kept. I created it to protect the people you refuse to accept. Consider this your reminder that family is chosen by love, not ruled by blood. The final line hit like a hammer. Evelyn's voice cracked. He wouldn't say that. He wouldn't hide money from me. Jacob lowered the letter. Mom, he did. She shook her head violently. He had no reason. That account is probably something fabricated. It cannot be real. Walter never deceived me. Maybe he did, Claire whispered, and you just never saw it. Evelyn's eyes snapped toward her daughter, shocked and betrayed. Claire? But Claire didn't back down. Mom, Dad spent the last few years trying to get you to treat Noah fairly. You ignored him. Every time he intervened, you dismissed him. You told him blood mattered more. Maybe he was tired. Evelyn's face twisted. You don't know what you're talking about. Actually, Jacob said, she does. He turned to Noah. Buddy, he said, his voice shaking with emotion. Come here. Noah stepped forward, unsure, but brave. Jacob knelt and wrapped him in a hug that wasn't rushed or whispered. It was the kind of hug a father gives when he realizes just how deeply he failed and how desperately he wants to fix it. I'm so sorry, Jacob whispered into Noah's hair. I should have defended you. I should have been the one standing up for you, not the one staying quiet. Noah clung to him, releasing a breath he had been holding for far too long. When Jacob stood again, he turned to his mother. Mom, you don't get to decide who my son is. Dad did. And I do. Noah is my child. He is your grandson, whether you like it or not. Evelyn's voice shook. You're choosing them over me? I'm choosing what's right, Jacob said. Claire stepped beside him. We all are. Tom added. Walter clearly saw something we didn't want to see. Even the cousins watched silently, realizing for the first time that this moment wasn't just uncomfortable. It was historic. Evelyn stumbled back into her chair. The woman who once dominated every corner of every gathering suddenly looked small. The pearls around her neck didn't shine the same way. Her makeup no longer masked the truth, settling into her features. Her voice softened into something I never expected. Walter hid something like this from me. From me. Jacob replied, maybe he didn't hide it. Maybe he protected Noah from you." Evelyn looked up at Noah. A flicker of something, guilt, loss, fear, flashed across her face, but it vanished as quickly as it came. She didn't apologize. She didn't acknowledge what she'd done. She simply sat there, trembling, her authority crumbling like old plaster. But the climax wasn't her collapse. It was Noah. He stepped closer to her chair, his small hands gripping the edge. "Grandma?" he said softly. "Grandpa told me to be brave. I didn't want to make you sad. I just wanted you to be nice." That innocence, that purity, that simple truth ripped through every adult in that room. Evelyn looked away. She had nothing left. Jacob pulled Noah back gently. "You already did more than anyone ever asked of you," he whispered. "You honored Grandpa. You told the truth." For the first time since I entered this family, the entire room wasn't following Evelyn. They were following Walter's wishes. They were following Noah's courage. They were following the truth. The shift was complete. The room didn't return to normal after the letter was read. In fact, nothing returned to normal. Something had cracked open inside that living room. Not just Evelyn's control, but the illusion that the Chambers family had operated under for years. The Christmas tree lights still blinked, the garland still shimmered, and the fireplace still glowed, but none of it could soften the weight of what had been revealed. Walter's voice echoed long after Jacob folded the letter and held it against his chest like something he wished he had discovered sooner. Noah sat beside me on the couch, leaning into my side with quiet exhaustion. He wasn't crying. He wasn't shaken. He was simply tired in that deep emotional way children feel when they've carried something too heavy for too long. I wrapped my arm around him and kissed the top of his head. "You were so brave," I whispered. "Grandpa would be proud." He looked up at me. "Mom, did I do something wrong? Grandma looked mad." My heart clenched. "No, you did exactly what Grandpa wanted. You honored his words. You showed everyone the truth." Across the room, Evelyn sat stiffly in her armchair, staring at the floor. She had not spoken a single word since the climax of the confrontation. Her breathing was unsteady, and her fingers fidgeted with her pearl necklace, the one she wore as a badge of her status. For the first time since I had known her, she looked unsure of herself, not repentant, not changed, simply shaken. Jacob stood in front of her. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't angry. He looked heartbroken. "Mom," he began gently, "Dad tried for years to get you to see things differently. He wanted you to love Noah, the way he did, the way I do." Evelyn didn't respond. Claire stepped forward too. "Mom, Dad was always trying to teach us to put love first. You pushed him away every time he disagreed with you. Maybe he got tired of trying." Still nothing. Tom added, "We can't pretend we didn't see what just happened. Dad left that money for Noah on purpose. He left that note on purpose. He wanted this moment to happen because he knew the truth wasn't safe with anyone else." Evelyn's jaw clenched. "I am not a villain," she said finally, her voice shaky but defensive. "No one said you were," Jacob replied, "but you hurt a child today. Dad watched you hurt him for years, and he prepared for the day you would do it again." Evelyn swallowed hard. "I didn't think it mattered. I didn't think he cared that much." Claire shook her head slowly. "He cared enough to leave a letter. He cared enough to open a private account. He cared enough to trust a 7-year-old more than he trusted you." Those words landed like stones. Evelyn's eyes glistened for a brief moment, but she blinked the tears away before they could fall. Jacob turned back to me and Noah. He knelt in front of both of us. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice cracking. "For every time I stayed quiet. For every moment I didn't stop her. I thought avoiding conflict was protecting you, but it wasn't. Dad gave me a message through that letter, too. He wanted me to be a better father than he was a husband at times." I touched his cheek. "You're trying now. That's what matters." He nodded, then pulled Noah onto his lap. "I love you," he said firmly. "You are my son. Always." Noah hugged him tightly. "I love you too, Dad." The rest of the family observed quietly, a mix of guilt, empathy, and realization settling into their expressions. No one rushed to comfort Evelyn. No one asked her side of the story. For once, the people around her recognized the harm she caused instead of excusing it. After a long, heavy silence, I stood. "We're going home," I said softly to Jacob. "Noah's had enough." Jacob looked at his mother one last time. "We won't be coming to gatherings unless Noah is treated with respect. No exceptions." Evelyn didn't argue. She didn't beg. She simply sat there gripping her necklace like it was the last piece of power she had left. Claire helped us gather our things. She hugged Noah gently and whispered, "Your grandpa would be proud of you, truly." As we walked out into the cold winter air, snowflakes falling gently around us, Noah tugged my hand. "Mom," he asked quietly, "do you think Grandma hates me?" I knelt in the snow, cupping his cheeks. "No," I said. "I think Grandma doesn't understand love the way Grandpa did, but that's not your fault." He looked down at his boots. "I hope she learns." I pulled him close. "Maybe she will. But whether she does or not, you will always be loved. And Grandpa made sure you would always be protected." Behind us, the Chambers mansion stood tall and shining, but it no longer felt like a place that controlled us. It felt like a place we had finally walked out of with truth on our side. As we drove home, Jacob held my hand, and Noah slept in the back seat with the envelope resting on his lap. Walter's final gift wasn't the money. It was freedom. Freedom from cruelty. Freedom from silence. Freedom from Evelyn's control. That Christmas, we didn't just walk away with $50,000. We walked away with something far more valuable. A family rebuilt on truth, and a child's courage that changed everything. And that was the Christmas that changed everything. Not because of the money, not because of the confrontation, but because one small boy refused to let cruelty define his worth. Noah didn't raise his voice. He didn't fight back with anger. He simply honored the love of the one person who always saw him clearly, his grandpa Walter. That day reminded me that real family isn't measured by bloodlines or old traditions. It's measured by the people who stand with you, protect you, and choose you again and again, even when no one is watching. Walter chose Noah, and Noah, in his own quiet bravery, chose truth. As we drove home, with Christmas lights fading behind us, I realized something important. Sometimes the biggest battles aren't loud. Sometimes the strongest people aren't the adults. And sometimes the clearest voice in the room comes from a child holding an envelope that holds more truth than a lifetime of family expectations. Thank you for listening to our story. If it resonated with you, if it made you feel something, or if you've ever had to stand up for someone you love, don't forget to like the video, share it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more real emotional stories just like this one. Your support helps these stories reach others who might need them. I'll see you in the next video.